When we approach the holiday of Pesach, or really any holiday for that matter, we want to know what are the themes that we're trying to connect to. What are the messages that we're meant to commune with during this time? The most basic point that we have to address is the name of the holiday itself. The name of the holiday Pesach, on its face, seems to be a little bit strange. Typically, Pesach is translated something to the tune of Passover, certainly what in the English-speaking world they translate that as. And we understand why the holiday would be called Passover. That we all know the scene that the Jewish people are in Egypt during the last and final plague, and they're in their houses, and there's this ravaging force that's going through Egypt and killing off all the firstborns, and they have to put the blood of the sacrifice on their doorposts, which will keep this evil, destructive force out. Right, as the verse says, "Adam upasachti aleichem," and I will see the blood on the doorposts, and I will pass over you, leap over you, something like that. And so that's kind of how the name Passover became synonymous with the name of this holiday. But if we give this just a little bit of thought, we could see that there's something strange about equating this name with the holiday of Pesach. First of all, it's a very, very central feature of all the plagues until this point that none of the plagues affected the Jewish people. In fact, it makes a point of that Paro and all of his advisors observed how everything from the wild animals to the lice to the hail, for some reason, affected the Egyptians and didn't affect the Jewish people, even though the two populations were mixed together. And suddenly we get to this final plague, and in order to avoid the effects of the plague, they require this grand ritual with a sacrifice and blood on the door. Why suddenly are the Jewish people required to act in this way? And second of all, even if we're going to grant that for some reason, okay, this plague required the Jewish people to take some steps in order to avoid the effects of the plague, but it seems very strange is that this is what we would call the holiday, that God didn't kill us. That I could have killed you, I could have killed all of you, but instead I passed over you and I didn't kill you. That seems to be a very, very, very strange name to give to this holiday, which is meant to be packed with significance and meaning, that God decided not to kill us and instead to pass over us. Very, very basic question in order to solve some of these mysteries. What does the word Pesach mean? It's not the only time that we find in the Bible, in Kisvei HaKodesh, this root Pesach. It is kind of a rare word. It's not particularly common, but it does appear in many other places. And just a very basic question, what does this word mean? What is the literal translation of the word Pesach? So interestingly enough, the word Pesach has a very specific meaning. The word Pesach means to jump. That's what the word Pesach means. We see, for example, later on in the book of Kings, where Eliyahu, the prophet Elijah, is rebuking the people, and he's rebuking them for serving God partially and then going secretly worshiping the idolatrous cult of Baal. Ad matay atem poschim bein shnei seipim? Until when are you going to stop jumping between the two sides? One day you're serving God and observing the Torah, and the next day you're worshiping idols. Poseach means to leap or to jump in this kind of aggressive way almost from one place to another. What is the context of jumping that it says very plainly in the story of the Exodus, as we're getting into the last chapters of the Exodus story, when the Jewish people are about to leave, that God says, Pasachti aleichem, and I will literally jump on you. What is the significance of this being jumped on? We can understand that not only does the word Pesach, and by extension the holiday Pesach, not mean Passover, but in fact, it's the opposite of Passover. Pesach means that God jumped on the people. He jumped on the houses of the Jewish people. All the Israelite houses became these targets, so to speak, for God to jump upon them. And by God jumping on them, that in turn saved them from the destroying energy that was ravaging around Egypt. In fact, this is said explicitly in the verse, in the narrative that we read as this story is taking place. Right, I'm reading from Sefer Shemot, the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 23. And God is going to go to smite Egypt. And God will see the blood on the doorposts. Upasach Adonai ala Pesach, and God will leap onto the entrance of the house. Velo yitein hamashchis lavo el batechem lingof, and will not allow the destroyer to enter to harm you. It's explicit that this is the theme of Pesach. Far from being that God skipped over, he was considering destroying but decided to pass over and skip the Jewish houses. It's not skipping the houses. It's the opposite of skipping the houses. It is leaping on the houses to ensure that they remain in this protected state. We could understand, what was this protection for? Why was it necessary at this point in time to have this level of protection? The plagues of Egypt, right, with all the intricate patterns that can be described within the plagues and the different things that they affected. One thing is for absolute certainty: the plagues were systematically dismantling every single aspect of Egyptian society, from the animals to the water systems to the sky to the weather. Everything was being affected by these plagues, systematically being broken apart. The Maharal, Yehuda Lau of Prague, says very famously, very interestingly rather, that the plagues of Egypt, the 10 plagues of Egypt, paralleled every single step of the creation process in the very, very beginning that we see in the Torah. As the sages say, there were 10 utterances, asara ma'amarot, 10 utterances that brought the creation into being. Each one of the plagues was a dismantling of one of those utterances of creation. Right? We see that it affects, again, the animals are affected, and nature is affected, and everything is affected, until we get to the final plagues, the plague of darkness. Choshech. Choshech puts out the lights. It affects that first utterance of creation, Vayehi or, let there be light. The lights go out. Choshech. Choshech affects that. It shuts that down. It shuts down that utterance of creation. The very fabric of being is being shut down. And then the finale, the final blow, the final strike, Makat Bechorot, the striking of the firstborn, the very, very first utterance of creation. As Chazal say in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Bereshit Nami Ma'amarhu. Genesis, the word in the beginning, was the first utterance of creation. The first utterance of creation is not a particular creation. It's not a particular item. It's not a particular feature of the world. But it's the very essence of beginning itself. Bereshit, the beginning. Nami Ma'amarhu is also an utterance of creation. Makat Bechorot, striking the firstness, was dismantling the very foundations of being. That's the Makat Bechorot. Makat Bechorot, it strikes the Bereshit. It strikes the foundation of creation itself. This was the protection that the Jewish people required, to be enveloped in this supernatural cocoon of sorts, in order so that they would also not be swept away in this destructive force. Not a destructive force that was hitting the externals. It was a destructive force that was dismantling the very fabric of creation itself. What's the lesson that we're supposed to be taking away from this? Indeed, Makat Bechorot, the striking of the firstborn, was the end game all along. We know this from the very, very beginning of the story. From even when, before Moses approaches Paro with the ultimatum to let the Jews go and serve God in the desert, God comes to Moshe with very, very specific instructions. He says to him, Ve'amarta el Paro, you will tell the following to Paro, Ko amar Adonai, beni bechori Yisrael. Israel is my firstborn son. Vayomer elecha shlach et beni ve'ya'avduni, v'tima'en l'shalcho. Anochi horeg et bincha bechorecha. If you refuse to let my son go, I'm going to kill your firstborn son. We knew this all along, that this is the direction that everything was heading. We didn't get any forewarning about any of the plagues, but the final plague we knew about from the get-go. We knew where this was going, so to speak. The final plague is very, very unique from all the other plagues. The Jewish people, until this point, are passive participants in this story. They're not doing anything. They're sitting back and watching the sound and light show. By the 10th plague, however, there's now an active role that the Jewish people need to take. They need to actually do something. They're given instructions. For this final stage, you need to participate. Until now, you were passive. But now you actually need to do something. What is the thing that they are doing? What is the significance of this ritual of bringing this Korban Pesach, the sacrifice of the Pesach, and having this ritual Seder in their homes? What is the significance of this? The significance is, are they going to choose to be God's firstborn? Or are they going to remain the firstborns of Egypt? That's the choice that they have to make. Right now, the firstborns of Egypt, they're being destroyed. They're being destroyed. The only way out of that, so to speak, is to be Bechori Yisrael, God's firstborn, the people of Israel. If you choose to take that identity, if you choose to be enveloped in that, then that in itself will form that protective cocoon around you. However, if you refuse to participate in that, then you'll be left with all the other firstborns. The firstborns are being destroyed right now. If you want to identify with these firstborns, that's the direction you're going to go. But if you choose to be my firstborn, then this is what you can be ensconced within. This is what you can be enveloped within. What does that mean to be enveloped in something? It means that this is the identity that we choose. This defines who we are. We choose to live in this reality. The reality outside is being systematically broken apart. All the utterances of creation are being undermined systematically, each and every one. The blood, the frogs, each one of them is attacking one of the utterances of creation until we get to the final utterance of creation, the very beginning itself. The makat bechorot, undermining the very, very beginning of creation. Everything is falling apart. And to know that we, collectively, as the Jewish people, we choose this reality to live within. We don't choose the reality outside. The reality outside can be undermined, it can fall apart, it can become unstable. We choose this reality. We choose to live within this supernatural domain that we call the Korban Pesach, coming close to God through this avodah, through this work that we call the Seder night. On Pesach now, perhaps more than any other year, it is incumbent upon us, to put it lightly, to choose this identity, to choose this reality. The reality outside, as we've seen with our own eyes, the reality outside can become very unstable, very, very quickly, to the point that the very fabric of creation becomes unstable and undermined completely. But through the Korban Pesach, through the Avodah, through this work of the Seder night, we create a unique reality within the broader reality. We create the Upasachti Alechem, that I will leap upon you. I will cover you. I will envelop you. You will be ensconced within me. And that is the choice, that is the active agency that each one of us, individually and collectively, take on every Pesach. Chizku v'ames levavachem, kol hameyachalim l'Adonai.